She sacrificed her entire future for him. She loved him more than she loved herself. But that love slowly rotted into something ugly, something desperate, something that nearly swallowed them all whole. Ji-yeon was only 22 years old when the hospital called. Her parents had driven out that foggy morning to visit relatives in Incheon, her mother laughing in the passenger seat, her father fussing with the radio. They never made it back. A truck driver fell asleep at the wheel on the highway, and just like that, Ji-yeon became a parent to her 9-year-old brother, Min-joon. She remembered how Min-joon refused to eat for 4 days after the funeral. He would sit curled in the corner of their small apartment in Busan, rocking back and forth, calling for their mother in a voice so small it could break stone. Ji-yeon would hold him through the nights, humming old folk songs their mother used to sing when they were sick, even though her own heart was cracking quietly in the dark. Their relatives came to the memorial and wept and said all the right things. But when the question of the 2 children came up, suddenly everyone had reasons. Busy lives, small apartments, financial struggles. "Do not worry, Min-joon," Ji-yeon whispered one night as they shared a single bowl of ramyeon between them. "I will be here. I will take care of us. I promise." Ji-yeon had been accepted into a prestigious fashion design program at Hongik University. She had earned it honestly, spent years building a portfolio toward it. She withdrew her enrollment without telling anyone and never spoke about it again. Instead, she found work at a textile factory in the industrial part of the city, standing on her feet from 6 in the morning until the floor manager sent her home. Her legs swelled by evening. Her fingers cracked from the dry air and the machinery. But Min-joon needed school supplies, a new uniform every year, tutoring on weekends, and 3 meals a day. As Min-joon grew older, Ji-yeon found more ways to earn. She took in alterations and sewing repairs on weekends from neighbors. She sold homemade banchan to office workers near the factory. She cleaned a small dental clinic on Friday evenings after her main shift. Some employers spoke to her like she was invisible. She learned to lower her eyes and keep moving. It did not matter. Min-joon mattered. "Why are you doing all of this?" Min-joon asked her once when he was in his 2nd year of high school. He had come home and found his sister asleep at the kitchen table, still in her work clothes, too exhausted to make it to bed. Ji-yeon blinked awake and looked at the boy who had grown so tall she barely recognized him sometimes. She straightened up and smiled. "Because you are all I have left in this world. You are my blood, and one day you will make everything worth it." Min-joon grabbed his sister's rough, tired hands and held them. "I promise you, Nuna, I will not waste this." He kept that promise. Min-joon was brilliant and relentless, always at the top of his class, always pushing himself further. The day he graduated from Seoul National University with a first-class degree in mechanical engineering, Ji-yeon took the train up from Busan wearing her best outfit, the one she had saved for special occasions, and ironed carefully 3 times that morning. She sat in the 3rd row, and when Min-joon's name was called and her little brother walked across that stage and accepted his certificate, Ji-yeon stood up in the crowded auditorium and shouted, "That is my brother. I raised him. That is my brother." The people around her laughed warmly and a few strangers clapped. They did not know the full weight of what they were witnessing, but Ji-yeon knew. After the ceremony, Min-joon found her outside and hugged her for a long time without saying anything. Then he pulled back and looked at his sister with wet eyes. "Everything I am is because of you, Nuna. I know what you gave up. I will spend my whole life being worthy of it." 6 months after graduation, Min-joon was hired by a top engineering firm in Seoul. His salary was more money than Ji-yeon had ever seen at one time. The first thing Min-joon did was find his sister a clean, comfortable apartment in a quiet part of Seoul, far from the cramped building in Busan where they had struggled for years. Ji-yeon walked through the empty apartment the day Min-joon handed her the keys, stood at the window looking out at the city, and let herself cry for the first time in years. Then on a Sunday afternoon in early spring, Min-joon showed up at that apartment with a woman beside him. She was beautiful and composed, with an easy smile and warm eyes. Her name was Adiz. She was Nigerian, a cardiologist who had done her fellowship at Severance Hospital and stayed on. Min-joon introduced her with a wide grin and the nervous energy of a man who already knew what he wanted. "We have been together for 2 years, he told his sister. "I want to marry her." Ji-yeon welcomed her in, made tea, sat across from her at the kitchen table and asked about her family, her work, her life. Adiz was gracious and open, answering everything with warmth. By the time they left, Min-joon was practically floating. But after the door closed, Ji-yeon sat down slowly on her sofa and stared at nothing for a very long time. After everything I endured, after every year I gave, every dream I buried, every night I chose him over myself, now a woman I have never met will walk in and receive the life I built. She will be the one he comes home to. She will be the one he thinks about first. She will get all of him while I get visiting hours. No, something in her went cold and hard. No. They married in the autumn. Ji-yeon attended and smiled in every photograph and helped organize the reception, and everyone at the wedding said what a devoted older sister she was. 1 week after the wedding, on a gray Monday morning, Min-joon and Adiz were in their apartment eating breakfast when someone knocked on the door so loudly and persistently that they both looked up from their plates. Min-joon opened the door to find Ji-yeon standing there with 2 large suitcases and a cardboard box. "Nuna, I did not know you were coming. Do I need permission to visit my own brother?" Ji-yeon said, pushing past him. "Come help me with these. I am moving in." Min-joon looked at Adiz. Adiz looked at Min-joon. Moving in, Min-joon asked carefully, "For how long? What kind of question is that?" Ji-yeon said, setting down her bags. "That apartment you got me is too quiet. I do not like being alone. This is your home too." Adiz stepped forward with a smile. "Of course you are welcome, Unnai. Let me help you get settled." That night Min-joon whispered to his wife in the dark, "Are you sure about this?" She pressed her hand against his chest. "She raised you. How do we say no? It is just temporary. She will settle in and want her own space again." The first morning was when the shape of things became clear. Adiz woke early to make breakfast for her husband, a habit she had carried from their dating days. She walked into the kitchen to find Ji-yeon already at the stove, stirring doenjang jjiggy without looking up. "Good morning," she said. "You did not have to cook. I was just about to start." "I have been cooking for Min-joon since he was 9 years old," Ji-yeon said, still not turning around. "I know exactly how he likes everything." "You can cook something for yourself." Adiz stood very still in the doorway. "I am sorry." Ji-yeon turned then and looked at her directly. "You heard me." Min-joon came out of the bedroom and found the table set for 2. His wife stood near the window holding nothing, her face carefully composed. "Nuna, where is Adiz's food?" "She can cook her own," Ji-yeon said, sitting down. "Come eat before it gets cold." Min-joon was uncomfortable, but he did not know how to confront the woman who had given up so many years for him. Every time he tried to raise it, Ji-yeon's eyes would fill with tears. "After everything I gave you. You are going to say my cooking is not good enough." And every time those tears appeared, Min-joon's words dissolved in his throat. It did not stop there. On outings, Ji-yeon would claim the front seat before Adiz could move, leaving her in the back of her own husband's car. At the supermarket, she would pull items from their trolley and announce loudly that Adiz was spending too carelessly, embarrassing her in front of strangers. Adiz absorbed all of it quietly. She was a patient woman by nature, and she understood sacrifice and family, but the weight of it kept building. "Please speak to her," she told Min-joon one evening after Ji-yeon had corrected the way she folded laundry in front of both of them. "I'm not complaining to score points. I understand everything she did for you, but we are newly married. We are supposed to be building something together, and I cannot breathe in my own home. I will talk to her." Min-joon promised. He meant it every time, but Ji-yeon always found a way to turn any confrontation into a question of gratitude. "Without me, you would be nobody. I gave up my life so you could have yours." Then Adiz's older sister Chisum came to visit from Lagos. She had missed the wedding because of a work emergency and arrived in Seoul in March with gifts and energy and eyes that missed nothing. She came on a Saturday, hugged her sister long and hard, and spent the first hour just watching. She watched Ji-yeon cook breakfast for only herself and Min-joon. She watched the way she positioned herself between Adiz and her husband throughout the morning. She watched her sister move through her own apartment like someone not entirely sure she was allowed to be there. She pulled Adiz into the bedroom. "What is happening in this house?" "Sister, please," Adiz said quietly. "I do not want trouble. She sacrificed so much for Min-joon. I have to be patient." Chisum stared at her. "She is cooking for your husband in your own kitchen while you watch. No, today this stops." That evening, Chisholm told Adiz to prepare Min-joon's favorite meal, a rich egusi soup with pounded yam, but to keep it in the pot and say nothing yet. While Ji-yeon was distracted at the stove, Chisholm slipped into the kitchen and emptied nearly an entire bottle of concentrated chili paste into Ji-yeon's soup. The kind of heat that does not apologize. At dinner, Ji-yeon served Min-joon as usual. Min-joon took one spoonful, dropped his chopsticks, and grabbed for water with streaming eyes. "This is impossibly spicy. Nuna, I cannot eat this." Immediately, Adiz appeared from the kitchen carrying a bowl of egusi soup, perfectly seasoned and fragrant. She placed it in front of her husband gently. "I made your dinner, my love." Ji-yeon's face went very still. She understood exactly what had happened. From that day, the apartment became a battlefield. Ji-yeon and Chisholm traded sabotage and insults across every room. Min-joon and Adiz spent their evenings pulling the two apart instead of building their marriage. On a Wednesday afternoon, Chisholm deliberately left a wet plastic bag on the floor near the bathroom doorway, where Ji-yeon always moved quickly in the mornings. She did not see it until her foot hit it at full speed, and she went down hard on the tile floor, twisting her knee so badly that she walked with a limp for 10 days. The apartment was exhausted in every direction. Min-joon was distracted and anxious at work. Adiz had started losing weight from the constant strain. Then one evening, while Ji-yeon was still recovering on the sofa and the tension sat heavy over everything, Chisholm looked at her and spoke plainly. "You know what your real problem is. If you had your own life, your own love, your own home, you would not be here fighting your brother's wife like a desperate woman. I have a husband. I have children. I have my own life. What do you actually have?" The words went somewhere deep. Ji-yeon had ended a relationship years earlier because she had no time, no money, no emotional space to offer anyone who was not Min-joon. She had told herself it was noble sacrifice. She had never let herself sit with what it had truly cost her. "You do not know what you are talking about," she said, but her voice was not steady. She stood up too fast, and Chisholm did not step back. They moved toward each other, and what followed was not dignified. They crashed into the coffee table, which cracked under their weight, sending both of them hard against the wall. Adiz was screaming for them to stop. A glass shelf came down. A chair went over. They were both bleeding and shaking with exhaustion when they finally stopped moving. When Min-joon came home that evening, he walked into a wrecked apartment. His sister and his sister-in-law lay dazed and barely moving on opposite ends of the room. He called an ambulance. Both were kept in hospital for observation for nearly 2 weeks. Min-joon and Adiz visited every day and handled everything quietly. And in those hospital corridors, speaking in low voices, they made a decision together. They packed their apartment, paid 12 months' rent in advance on Ji-yeon's lease, settled every hospital bill, and booked flights. When Ji-yeon was discharged and returned to find the apartment empty of the couple, she called Min-joon immediately. The phone rang a long time. Min-joon answered. His voice carried the calm of someone who had made peace with something difficult. "Nuna, I love you. What you did for me is real, and I have never taken it for granted, not for one single day of my life. But I watch my wife cry herself to sleep more nights than I can count because of what was happening in our home. She never once disrespected you. She never once threw your sacrifice back at you. She just kept trying to love this family, and you punished her for being the person I chose." Ji-yeon closed her eyes. "Because I did not want to lose you," she said. The words felt smaller out loud than they had felt inside her for years. "You were not losing me, you were suffocating me. I am grateful for everything, and I will always be grateful. But I am not something you are owed, Nuna. I am not your proof that your life had meaning. I am just your brother. Adiz and I are in Canada. We left 2 days ago. We needed space that genuinely belonged to us. The apartment is paid for the year. I will send money every month. But I need time. I need room to actually be a husband. Canada, when are you coming back?" "I do not know, Nuna. Not any time soon. God gave me a good woman, a woman who chose patience when most people would have chosen war. But you could never see her as anything other than a threat. I am grateful for everything you gave me. Truly. But I will not allow that gratitude to cost me my marriage." He ended the call. Ji-yeon stood in the quiet apartment and understood for the first time the full shape of what she had done. She had loved Min-joon with everything in her. That was real and true. But somewhere along the way, love had become ownership. She had given so much that she started believing the giving had purchased something it never could. She had tried to collect a debt from someone who had never agreed to the terms. Chisholm was still in Seoul, waiting for her return flight. She knocked on the door that evening. When Ji-yeon opened it, Chisholm looked at her with tired, honest eyes and said nothing dramatic. "It did not have to end this way," she said quietly. Then she picked up her bag and left. Ji-yeon sat with the silence for a long time after that. She had given Min-joon everything, and that was good. But she had let the giving hollow her out until she became a woman who did not know who she was outside of what she had sacrificed. The person she had given it all to was living his life on the other side of the world, the very life Ji-yeon had helped build. All that remained in her hands was the quiet shape of what control looks like when it wears the face of love. The greatest gift we can offer the people we love is the freedom to live their lives without our sacrifice chained around their ankles. If this story moved you, please share it with someone who needs to hear it. Do not forget to like, subscribe, and tell us in the comments what you think. Was Ji-yeon right to have only want Min-joon to herself forever? Let's hear your thoughts. Thank you for being here. See you in the next one.